Zysha's ears twitched at the distant groan of metal, the ship's dying breath echoing through the empty corridors. Shackled to the cold floor, she curled tighter around her 3 tiny kits, their fur barely thick enough to keep them warm. They pressed against her, their frail bodies trembling from hunger and fear. She licked the smallest one's head, trying to soothe them, but the truth clawed at her. There was no escape. The slavers had abandoned them. The attack had come swift and brutal, their ship left adrift, systems failing one by one. Zysha had heard the chaos beyond the cargo hold, the shouting, the desperate scramble for the escape pods. But no one had come for her. No one had come for the babies. She was nothing to them, just a creature they'd captured, a rare prize meant to be sold. And now, she and her children would die here, alone in the dark. She tugged at the chain around her neck for the 100th time, her claws scraping uselessly against the reinforced metal. The shackle dug into her fur, a cruel reminder of her helplessness. She was weak, her body running on nothing but instinct and dwindling hope. If she couldn't find food soon, if she couldn't get free—
No.
She refused to let the thought settle. A deep shudder ran through the ship, a vibration that sent dust trickling from the overhead beams. Her ears perked. That was different. The usual groans and creaks of the ship's slow collapse were familiar now, a background hum of decay. But this was movement. Someone was out there. She bared her fangs, her tail bristling. If it was another scavenger, they wouldn't care about her or her kits. They'd strip the ship for valuables and leave them to rot. Or worse. The kits whimpered at her sudden tension. She forced herself to relax, her instincts warring with her need to comfort them. Whatever came next, she would fight. Even if her claws were dull, even if her body was weak, she would not let them take her kits. Another noise. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Not the rushed, panicked stomps of fleeing slavers. Someone was searching. A faint light flickered beyond the cargo hold's entrance, the beam of a flashlight cutting through the dimness. Zysha flattened her ears, her muscles coiling. The steps grew closer. Then they stopped. A shadow blocked the doorway, tall and unfamiliar. The light swept across the room, pausing when it reached her. Zysha met the stranger's gaze with a feral glare, shielding her kits with her body.
She would not beg.
She would not plead. If this was the end, she would meet it with bared fangs. The figure stood silent for a moment, then took a slow step forward. The light lowered. No weapon raised. No sudden movements. Just a single voice, deep and steady. "You're not alone anymore." The ship trembled beneath their feet, each step a gamble. Doran led the way, his every instinct screaming that they were running out of time. The feline alien followed, her movements sluggish but focused, her kits bundled tightly against her chest. She never let her eyes leave him, suspicion still lingering beneath her exhaustion. He didn't blame her. His AI fed him bad news at every turn. Primary corridors blocked. Rerouting, warning, structural collapse detected ahead. He cursed under his breath. The ship wasn't just failing, it was coming apart. He turned sharply, leading them down a maintenance tunnel. The confined space forced them close, but the alien kept moving without protest. Her kits stirred weakly, one letting out a faint sound. Not much time left before they were too far gone. A deep, guttural groan vibrated through the walls, and suddenly, the passage ahead buckled. A support beam snapped free, crashing down in a spray of sparks. Doran stopped short, calculating. No way through. He glanced back. The alien's ears twitched, her tail lashing in agitation. She knew they were trapped. His mind worked fast. One option left. "We go up," he muttered, activating his wrist controls. A holographic map flickered to life, showing a narrow vent shaft above them. It connected to the upper level, close to his ship, but a gamble. The feline alien followed his gaze, then looked at her kits. The leap would be impossible for her in her condition. She knew it. He knew it. Doran holstered his weapon and stepped closer. "Trust me." Her ears flattened. A long second passed, tension thick. Then slowly she nodded. He reached for the kits first, wrapping them carefully in the folds of his jacket. They were barely more than warm pulses against his chest. Then he grabbed her by the waist, bracing. "Hold on." She barely had the strength to grip his shoulders, but it was enough. With a controlled burst from his jet boosters, he propelled them upward, maneuvering through the shaft just as another explosion rocked the lower decks. Heat licked at his back. They hit the upper level hard. Doran rolled to absorb the impact, his arms tight around the kits. The feline landed beside him, gasping for breath. No time to recover. His AI's voice cut through the alarms. 5 minutes until total collapse. Doran forced himself up, adjusting the weight of the kits in his arms. "Move." The alien didn't hesitate. She pushed herself forward, staggering but determined. They sprinted through the last corridor, the docking bay in sight. Doran could already see his ship, waiting, engines primed. Behind them, the wreck gave one final, agonized groan. Metal screamed as the ship tore itself apart. Doran lunged for the airlock, slamming the controls. The door sealed just as fire consumed what remained of the slaver's vessel. For a long moment, there was only silence, save for the heavy breathing of 2 survivors.